Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا قَالَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Karochi. Karochi is a term in Japanese that is used to mean death out of being tired. Someone tires themselves out till they die. So that was a common term in Japan, Karochi. And I'm just about to tell you how it comes about. When these American bomb jets dropped nuclear bombs on the two cities in Japan, the city of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And paying much attention to the city of Hiroshima, for about 120 seconds, the city was down. For 120 seconds, nothing was up in the city of Hiroshima. Just a few hours after the bombing of Hiroshima, the city of Hiroshima's lights were back on. In just a few days, the banks were working with no roofs. And when it would rain, they would use umbrellas. Why am I speaking all this? A man writes a book that was going to describe how someone evolves from being just good to being great. And the analysis, the sample space he was going to use was he was going to investigate and he was going to hold interviews with the world's leading companies and industries. He was going to investigate and see what is behind the success of these industries. And with hours of documents, with hours of interviews, he comes up with a list of factors that was the backbone of the success of these industries, the success of these companies. And at the core of each one of those successes was the point he listed out as number one, fostering the culture of discipline. Fostering the culture of discipline. The young men in Hiroshima knew there was no one who was going to make their city turn back up apart from themselves. And yes, they were going to inculcate the discipline. They are going to put the factor of discipline in their lives. But what is this discipline? It seems unrelated, but bear with me. The main character of the account we are looking at is called Ibrahim. In some narrations, Abraham. But I want to quote you another Abraham that is not the Abraham we are looking at today. Abraham Lincoln, when he was defining what discipline is, he said, discipline is the ability to draw a distinction between what you want now and what you want most. I repeat, the ability to draw a clear distinction between what you want now and what you want most. In other words, the ability to say no when in actual sense your heart is yearning to say yes. Or the ability to say yes when your heart is yearning to say no. That is another Abraham. And I am here to talk to you about an Abraham that is no ordinary Abraham. This is the Nabi of Allah, Ibrahim alayhi salam. One thing that is common, one thing that appears in each and every test that Ibrahim alayhi salam faces is that with him was the culture of discipline. We saw in the previous sessions that before you reach the point of worshipping and submitting yourself to any deity, to anyone, before you submit yourself to anyone, there has to be some two factors behind that submission. Factor number one, you are supposed to know that being. And factor number two, you are supposed to love that being. And those two factors will drive you to submit to this being, to this creature. Take an example of your son, your daughter. Take an example of your young sibling. Because you love them, when they tell you, when you're coming back, please bring me a sweet. Is this young kid commanding you? Is he? He's making a request. But if you know them and you love them, even that request will turn out to be a command. And you will yearn and do that for them. Discipline. I was sitting somewhere, so I decided to list down the tests that Ibrahim alayhi salam was going through. Allow me look at them. I'm not sure whether I exhausted them, but listen with me. The test of family. He was following a religion that not even his family was following, that even his family was watching when he was tested the second way, being thrown into the fire. So he has the test of family, he has the test of being thrown into the fire, he has the test of discomfort. Almost majority of his life, Ibrahim alayhi salam is moving. Not moving from one village to the other. He's crossing nations, he's crossing countries, he's crossing boundaries. You see, of late I've been traveling a lot, actually not on foot, on a border. And I'm traveling just within Kampala, a range of not more than 100 kilometers. From this side, from Chambogo to this side, to this side, to this side. And that is the cycle. Within a few kilometers, on a border, I'm not moving on foot. But the moment I step on anything soft, I fall down exhausted. I can't do anything because I've been moving all day. I've been moving from this place, but I've been on a border. I've been moving in cars, seated, with that set of comfort. You see, when they tell you when you're traveling, you are given an exemption of not fasting. You can break your fast as you're traveling. And before facing such a challenge, I was like, how can someone sit down from Kampala to Mbale and all of a sudden they say they're not going to fast? You're just going to be seated. I just realized a few weeks ago, yes, it is true. However much they are seated, journeying alone has a lot of discomfort. There is a sense of peace of mind that goes off of you just because you are traveling. And the test of Ibrahim alayhi salam, born in Iraq, he moves to Asham, Palestine and Syria. From Palestine and Syria, he moves to Egypt, back to Palestine, from Palestine to Hijaz, to Mecca. You could say all his life he was moving. And that was a test also, a test of discomfort. The next test, for almost all his life, he is childless. And how many children is he given? 2 children. But for majority of his life, for over 8 decades, the Prophet of Allah, Ibrahim alayhi salam, has no child at all. Childless. On top of that, at around the age of 80, the Prophet of Allah, Ibrahim alayhi salam, is told to circumcise himself. I come from Mbale. I'm a Gishu. People run away from Imbalu. People run away from it. It's no joke. The Prophet of Allah is commanded to circumcise himself at the age of 80. I'm not talking about the tests and details, I'm just listing down the tests. Ibrahim alayhi salam is tested with leaving his family in a barren desert, a barren land. On top of that, Ibrahim alayhi salam, after years now that his son has grown up, his son has matured, Allah tells him to sacrifice his son, his only son. We are going to look at that in a few. Ibrahim alayhi salam, with limited manpower, he is told to raise the foundations of the house of Allah. That is as far as I could go with the tests Ibrahim alayhi salam faced. From his family being against him to raising the foundations of the house of Allah at the end of his career, of course. Now back to the fostering of the culture of discipline in our lives. One thing that is seen behind every trial, every test that Ibrahim alayhi salam was facing was that he was fostering the culture of discipline in passing whatever trial he was given, whatever test he was given. Ibrahim alayhi salam, told to circumcise himself. Who is telling him? Allah is telling him. So he has to choose between what he wants now and what he wants most. And if Ibrahim alayhi salam were to come here and we asked him what he wants most, what would he say? Allah. Nothing comes before Allah in the life of Ibrahim. That even when discomfort is on my side, but the end result is Allah, Ibrahim is choosing Allah. He's ready to sacrifice his own comfort to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Discipline. And that is going to be the big heading of today's session. But before I delve so much into discipline and looking further into the tests of Ibrahim alayhi salam, why does Allah test us? It has to be a question. Why does Allah test us? Where does He benefit when He tests us? With the tests and trials that we face, with the calamities that fall us, our side, why is Allah testing us? Allah doesn't benefit in any way, but it is me and you who benefit. The way is how? Alif Lam Mim. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Do people think they are going to say they believe and they're not going to be tested? Do you think you're just going to... Okay, do we love Allah? By show of hands. Do we love Allah? Do we believe in Allah? Yes, we do. For those of you who are not watching this, it was 100% positive response. They all said they loved Allah, and they all said they believed in Allah. But do you think that's going to be it? Let me give you an example that fits our understanding better. You find a girl, you tell them, I love you. Salam alaikum. I've gone. And you come back with an invitation letter. You show her, we have arranged the wedding. It's going to take place on 7th April. Please, my bride, be present. What is she going to say? Gomnanas. Tell me, what is she going to say? Are you crazy? And of course, I'm going to say, I'm not crazy. I told you I loved you. What is she going to say? What shows? You just said you loved me, but what? What shows? Do you think it's just going to be okay for you to say you love Allah? For you to say you believe in Allah? وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ, and there is no test? Do you think that's going to be the case? No, not really. And just like that girl would want to test you whether you're really ready to go far these extremes to prove your love to them. And one trick Allah uses to truly test for your commitment is tests and trials. Allah doesn't benefit in any way when we are tested. No. But Allah is testing. When we say we believe in Allah, how far are we really going to go? Listen to the words of Ibrahim alayhi salam. What he says? He says, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. My prayers, my rites, my rituals, my life and my death are all for who? For Allah, the Lord of the worlds. And be ready whenever you speak these words. Be ready whenever you say you believe in Allah. There is always going to be a test of commitment. See, when you are just going in for this job, there is what they call probation period. Okay, you're going to work for 6 months with no pay. You're going to work. You are volunteering. What are they testing? Whether you're committed. And this is just a company. A small company is testing for your commitment. And you're working for 6 months for free. Because you applied and you said you're ready to work. It wasn't enough for you to say you're ready to work, for you to sign a contract the following day. No, they were supposed to test for your commitment. And yes, you are going to work on probation for 6 months. Testing for your commitment. And when you say you believe in Allah, when you say you love Allah, Allah is wanting to know how far you are willing to go to prove that love and to prove that faith and belief. And one way to do that is tests and trials. One of my teachers drew this example for me. You see, when you're sorting beans that have stones, okay, it's going to be a long process. Sometimes you put these beans on a wire mesh, okay, that you're going to shake these beans and the stones are going to find the way out and you're going to remain with pure beans. Not so? And the question is, were those beans in position to ask you, why are you shaking me? Why are you taking me out of my comfort zone? What would be your answer? I'm cleaning you, I'm cleansing you. I want to purify you. And wow, this was a beautiful analogy that was supposed to sink in my head. Just like the beans are shaken to put the dirt out, oh yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tests and trials to shake us up, that we get cleansed, we get purified. How many Muslims, how many people out there have become better Muslims because of the tests and trials Allah gives them? Sometimes people become better Muslims after Allah taking away a beloved one from their lives. Not so. Allah takes a friend, a close friend of yours, and you become a better person. Sometimes Allah takes you through a test, takes you through a trial, because He wants you kneeling on His door, knocking on His door, relentlessly. Allah wants you closer to Him. And that is why He's taking you through tests and trials. Because you know what? Sometimes when our lives are filled with abundance, when our lives are filled with no tests, no trials, guess what? We turn out to be far away from Allah. And it has been evident from the stories before. One time the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asks one man, he asks him, do you know what fever is? This man says, fever? What's fever? And the Prophet asks him, do you know what headache is? And the man is like, what's headache? I've lived all my life. I don't know what's fever. I don't know what's headache. So the man moves away. He's going. And the Prophet ﷺ talked to the companions, Man sarrahu an yandura ila rajulin min ahli an-nar falyandur ila hadha ar-rajul. Whoever wants to look at a man of hellfire, let him look at that man. The Prophet is not meaning whoever is not going to find headache and fever is going to hellfire. No. The Prophet is drawing an example for me and you. If you're living a life of no test, then you don't even stand chance. So the Prophet, who was given a glimpse of what's going to come ahead, he says, if you want to see a man of hellfire, look at him. Because one way that Allah draws us closer to Him, one way that Allah purifies us, is taking us through tests and trials. That is why when a companion asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about ashaddun nasi bala, who are the ones that are tested the most by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did the Prophet say? Al-Anbiya, the prophets of Allah. They are tested the most. ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. Then those that are in the caliber of the prophets, those who are close to the prophets, the righteous, the martyrs, the people who do good, the people who resemble the prophets the most are the ones who are going to face harder trials and tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was going to always be the case. Al-amthal fal-amthal. And when you look out to find what is the mold, what is the filter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses for the people He's going to test and the people He's not going to test, it's going to be one small filter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests the finest of His creation. The prophets, ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. So when Allah wants to draw you closer to Him, when Allah wants to purify you, to cleanse you, He tests you. So the Prophet tells us, not a prick of a thorn. Rarely do we find thorns on our way nowadays. You see, when you're moving and you knock that stone by mistake, not even that pain is going to, when you persevere through that pain is not going anywhere unrewarded. Allah is rewarding you for it. Allah is taking a sin off of you for that knocking. Every kind of fever, every kind of flu, every kind of sickness, every kind of test, every kind of trial, Allah is cleansing us of our sins. And Allah is raising our sin levels with the tests He gives us. Could you give a university test to someone in Nazareth? Could it be the case that your lecturer sets a paper and you say, my young brother, my young sister who is in middle class deserves to sit for this paper? Why wouldn't it be the case? Because this test is not caliber. So carry the same mindset to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when He's bringing a test, if me, a creation of Allah, not in any way compared to Allah, I can notice that this is a university test, I can't give it to someone in middle class, I can give it to someone in primary, I can give it to someone in secondary. If I, who can be compared to Allah, not in any way, shape or form, can realize that, how about Allah who created me? Do you think He can get a test that doesn't belong to me and He gives it to me? Do you think that would be the case? Tell me, brothers. You think that could be the case? It can't be the case, not in any way. So this is how beautiful Allah is. He is giving us a test, one, to test our commitment. Number two, if we persevere, the test itself is cleansing us and purifying us. Number three, even the test that is so hard on us, like we can presume, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has custom tailored the test for me and you. It couldn't be anyone else. It couldn't be any other time. It was supposed to be you. It was meant to be this time. And in that same weight, this is what Allah is trying to tell us. And the Arabic word for a calamity is musiba. A musiba. That's not a new word, not so? We even turn it to Luganda or Muswiba. You see, when the archer could hit the target using the arrow, and he hits the target, the Arab man says, Asaba Rami. He has hit the target. Asaba. So Allah says, the Arab man calls it a musiba from the word asaba, hitting the target, meaning the calamity, the test and the trial that has come my way, that has come your way, has hit the target. It couldn't be any other person. It couldn't be any other time. This was the time. It was you, and that was the magnitude. You were the target for this test, for this trial. When Allah tests us, sometimes, especially university students, what is the test that Allah could give you? A retake, a pocket money, missing marks, missing on the graduation list, surcharge. Let me talk about a retake. When Allah tests you with a retake, don't you think something has to be done? Don't you think? Maybe you were lazy in doing your coursework. You came up with some 20, not so? When the exams came, your reading was not so too much, so you earned yourself a 29. Total high is 49. Do you pass? No. At the end of the day, is it going to be a test from Allah? Why has Allah given you that test? Talk to me. To awaken you, to make you look through your shortcomings and become a better person. When your business falls, you start up a business, Allah gives you a test, the business fails. Do you sit down and say, Allah geze? Is that what you do? No. Even in science, when someone is making an experiment, the experiment fails. At the end of the report, there is always going to be what they call sources of error. Not so? For you to investigate what were the sources of error, so that the next experiment I'm going to make is going to be better than the previous one. And this is what Allah wants of me and you. When Allah is taking us through tests, Allah wants us to look back at our lives, back to our lives. How are we improving ourselves? How are we using those tests, those shortcomings, to be better people, to improve ourselves? This is how Allah loves us. The very last point about the issue of why Allah tests us. It would be a question. Why would it even be a question? Why would I and you be asking, why is Allah testing me? I've been generous enough. I've tried to look up some of the reasons why Allah tests us. Scholars have listed some of them, and I've given them to you. But now, the very last point I want to talk about this. Why would you come up with that question? You yourself. Imagine a carpenter who goes to the forest, he cuts down a tree, he's going to make a chair, he's going to make a table, and all of a sudden this tree asks the carpenter, why are you cutting me? Does the carpenter owe any explanation to the tree? Does he? Why? The tree belongs to who? The carpenter. The carpenter has the tree. The tree is property of the carpenter. The tree has no right to ask this question in the first place. Take an example of a tailor. A tailor who is going to make a cloth. So he buys this material, and for the tailor to make this beautiful cloth, he has to cut off some pieces of the cloth, not so? He has to cut off some pieces for the cloth to look beautiful and good looking. Does the cloth have a right to ask the tailor why the tailor is cutting? Does it? Why? The tailor knows best why he is doing that. The carpenter knows best why he is cutting down the tree, why he is doing whatever he is doing. I'm not talking about a carpenter, am I? I'm not talking about a tailor, am I? I'm talking about Allah. He made me. He made you. In other words, we are His timber. He's trying to mold us. He's trying to make chairs out of us, taking us through tests and trials. And all of a sudden, why is Allah taking me through this? He's trying to turn us to make that cloth beautiful. All of a sudden, we are asking Allah, why are you taking me through this? You buy a car, all of a sudden the car asks you, why are you taking me this way? You buy this bicycle. You buy that phone, and the phone asks you, why are you downloading this app? For me, I don't want it. What will you do? This phone has a problem. This phone has a problem. The phone belongs to me, but it's not allowing me to use it what I want. Yes, the same applies to you with Allah. When we face any calamity, yesterday we realized what is the statement that the patient say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to Allah. And that statement could be enough for you not to ask that question, why Allah is testing you. Because we are the property of Allah. And property doesn't have a right to ask the owner how he's using it. Your pen doesn't have a right to ask you how you're using it, because it belongs to you. And whenever we remind ourselves, Inna lillahi, inna lillahi, inna lillahi, we belong to Allah, we belong to Allah, we belong to Allah, we are re-echoing a sound in our heads that Allah is free to deal with us in whatever way He wishes. Allah is free to test us in whatever way He wishes, because we are His property. And when the tests and trials come our way, one thing we are supposed to face them with, discipline. When Allah takes your friend to Himself, Allah has done it that way, because you and your friend are properties of Allah and not a property of Allah. It is not befitting of a property of Allah to ask Allah why you have done this and that. That is why every calamity befalls us, we remind ourselves, we belong to Allah. When you lose your money, you remind yourself, we belong to Allah. You lose your spouse, you lose your job, you are battling divorce, whatever you are going through in your life, you are supposed to remind yourself, we belong to Allah. And Allah is free to take us through life the way He wishes, because we are His property. And that is the sense of discipline that I was talking about. And when you look at the tests and trials Ibrahim alayhi salam was going through, he lost the commitment of his family. He went through that so painfully. I'm listing what he lost now. He lost the commitment of his family. Not even his family was willing to follow him. Least of whom was the father himself. One thing that most of us do not know is that he lost Hajar. When Ibrahim alayhi salam came later on to this land where we left Hajar yesterday, Hajar had died in the absence of who? Of Ibrahim. And it was Ismail, a grown-up man. Ibrahim lost a spouse too. And majority of the tests that Ibrahim alayhi salam was going through were tests of obeying commands. Few of the tests Ibrahim was losing. Majority of the tests Ibrahim alayhi salam was fulfilling commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fall into the fire, for whose sake? Allah. Move with your family to the barren desert, for whose sake? Allah. Circumcise yourself at the age of 80, for whose sake? Allah. Build the house of Allah, for whose sake? Allah. Sacrifice your son, for whose sake? All those are commands. But Ibrahim alayhi salam faces these commands with fostering the culture of discipline in his own self. I re-echo the words of another Abraham Lincoln. He says, discipline is the ability for you to differentiate, to draw a clear distinction between what you want now and what you want most. So in a few minutes, let me talk about the test of Ibrahim sacrificing his son. So he comes and he tells his son, Inni ara fil manami anni adbahuk. I see in my dreams that I'm slaughtering you. I'm sacrificing you. You know, there is a difference between ara and ra'aytu. When Yusuf was relating his dream, he said, Inni ra'aytu. I saw. Ibrahim doesn't say Inni ra'aytu. He says ara, I see. And ra'aytu means it happened only once. And I see, it means it has happened several times. So whenever Ibrahim is falling asleep, he's slaughtering the son. Whenever Ibrahim is falling asleep, he's slaughtering his son. Maybe he thinks it's just a dream, but it's happened on several occasions. Now he realizes it is a command from who? From Allah. He comes, he tells his son, I see in my dreams that I'm sacrificing you, I'm slaughtering you. The son says, If'al ma tu'mar. Do what you've been commanded. So the son acknowledges that this is a command from who? From Allah. And when you look at whoever was close to Ibrahim alayhi salam, when it comes to something from Allah, they submit. When Hajar asked Ibrahim, Allahu amaraka bihada, is it Allah who commanded you? Ibrahim says yes. What does she say? Idhan la yudayya'ana. Allah won't neglect us. We won't be lost. He comes to Ismail. Ara fil manami anni adbahuk. I say in my dreams I'm slaughtering you. Ismail says, If'al ma tu'mar. Satajiduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. You'll find me amongst the patient. Oh my God. Ibrahim gets his son. He's moving. Cutting the long story short, this is arguably the greatest test Ibrahim was going to face in his life. Ibrahim was dying to have a son that will draw forward his legacy. It was a dream of Ibrahim. And now he has this son. The son has matured, ready to be taught to push on the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That prophethood could flow from his lineage. Ibrahim is told, go and sacrifice your son. He gets hold of the son, going, and the son tells him, Dad, tie my hands so tight, tie my feet so tight, blindfold me. Because when you look at me, you might be tempted to go against the command of who? And just like he was moving away from Hajar and Ismail at a young stage, the son Ismail is telling him, blindfold me, don't look at me. Because when eyes meet, you might be tempted to go against the command of who? The command of Allah. Ibrahim is blindfolded. Ismail is blindfolded. Ibrahim alayhi salam makes sure the knife very sharp. He sharpens the knife. He draws the knife to the neck of Ismail, and the knife is as blunt as never before. Very blunt. The knife isn't cutting. The knife is not cutting. Ibrahim is wondering. So when he drops the knife down, the knife breaks this rock into... The knife is breaking the rock into two. The knife can't cut flesh. He comes again, putting the knife on the neck of Ismail. The knife is not cutting, it is blunt. And several times, wanting to sacrifice his own son because it is a command from Allah. Ibrahim alayhi salam is differentiating between what he wants now. He wants his son so badly. And he's putting a clear distinction between what he wants now and what he wants most. Because he wants Allah most, not even his son is going to stand in his way. Is he smiling while he's trying to sacrifice? Is he smiling? Is he? He's not smiling. It is not something easy. He's fighting, he's going against what he himself wants. He's actually saying yes, when actually his heart inside is dying to say no. And Ibrahim is doing it. And behold, the heavens open themselves. And here comes Jibril with a sheep. Hold on, did I talk about this sheep before? Yes. Oh, you were not here. The sheep that one of the sons of Adam gave in for the sake of Allah, Ibrahim alayhi salam receives the very sheep from the first Khalifa, Adam alayhi salam. The sons, Habil, gives in this sheep as a sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah brings back the same sheep. Jibreel alayhi salam, behold, he comes with this sheep. He tells Ibrahim, Allah is substituting your son for this sheep. And that is something we commemorate on every 10th day of Dhul Hajj. When we sacrifice that sheep, when we sacrifice that goat. But guess what we don't carry on? We don't carry on the sense of discipline that Ibrahim alayhi salam had. Did Ibrahim sacrifice his son? Was he willing to? What did he sacrifice? Sheep. And all we carry, whenever the 10 days of Dhul Hajj come in, actually, the whole legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, one thing we borrow from him, sacrificing animals on. And I argue, we follow that because we are going to benefit ourselves. How beautiful is the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that he is teaching us to foster the culture of discipline. What do I want now? I want my peace of mind. I want my comfort. What do you want most? I want Jannah. I want the pleasure of Allah most. What does it take for me to attain Jannah? It takes me to go against what I want now. So, kick that blanket, move for Fajr prayers. Go out of your comfort zone. Come closer to Allah. Because you are differentiating between what you want now and what you want most. This is something we learn from Ibrahim. And something that was behind all the tests that he faced. Not even his family was going to stand in his way. He was going to go through these trials in a tough time. He was not going to go through them smiling, because that is a myth we carry when it comes to prophets of Allah. We think when they went through these trials, they were smiling. Oh Ismail, Allah is commanding me to slaughter you. Come on. Could you lie down and I slaughter you? That wasn't the case, brother. It wasn't the case, sister. It was a tough decision for Ibrahim to draw that distinction. What do I want now? What do I want most? I want Allah most. So what I want now makes no sense. The sisters, maybe it doesn't make sense to you to put on hijab, to be covered. Maybe it doesn't make sense to you to establish 5 prayers a day. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it takes you out of your comfort zone. Maybe it takes you off of your business. Allah is not telling you to sacrifice your son. Allah is not telling you to leave your family in the desert. Allah is not telling you to leave your job. What is Allah telling you? Give me 10 minutes. Give me less than an hour. Out of the 24 hours in a day, I want less than 1 hour. And I don't want the full hour at once. I'm dividing this hour in separate times. Give me a few minutes on Fajr, a few minutes on Dhuhr, a few minutes on Asr, a few minutes on. And when we foster the culture of discipline, that I know Salah is not my thing. Salah is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it because I'm differentiating, I'm putting a distinction between the comfort I want now and the Jannah I want most. And the pleasure of Allah I want most. This was behind the big tests that Ibrahim alayhi salam was facing. And one thing that drove him through that was what he wanted most. And that is behind every test, behind everything that we are going to face, Iman was going to be there. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think they're just going to say they believe and they're not going to be tested? Do you think you're going to just tell that lady you love her and she's not going to want to prove that you love her? It's not going to be the case. I'm not comparing that lady to Allah, ma'adallah. I'm trying to bring the example closer to you. If the word I love you is not enough for her, not in any ways can she be compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why would you think you're going to say you love Allah? Why would it be that you're going to say you believe in Allah and you think you're not going to be tested? Man, we are going to be tested. and Allah is testing for that iman, do you think you're going to say amanna? Do you think you're going to say you believe and you're not going to be tested? Yes. When you say you believe, Allah is going to test you, because you know what? When you have iman, problems don't go away with iman. You see our athletes in other religions, they tell you come with your problems, not so? The lame will walk, the deaf will hear, the mute will speak. It's not the case. Actually, for us in our tradition, when you have iman, the higher your iman, the greater the challenges. Man hum ashaddun nasi bala, who are the people who are tested the most by Allah, who get the most intense tests from Allah? Al-Anbiya. ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. And their likes follow. The likes of the Anbiya, the finest of Allah's creation, get the tests, the hard tests from Allah. Do you know why? When you have iman, iman is not a shield away from tests and trials and calamities. Iman is the boat that helps you sail through problems, sail through those calamities. Is it hard? Yes, it is hard. But Ibrahim has this great iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he loves him most. And Ibrahim alayhi salam is not going to be deluded by anything. He wants now to take him off of Allah that he wants most. And I remind myself and yourself the statement of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Inni la uhibbul afilin. I'm not ready to sacrifice my worship, to sacrifice my unending love, to sacrifice my unconditional love to that is going to set. That unconditional submission, unconditional love, unconditional worship belongs to Allah, because He does not set, He does not go away. So Ibrahim knows that he loves his son so much, but not at the expense of Allah. He's ready to do that. My major aim to come here today was to talk you through how Ibrahim managed to go through these tests and trials. Because it makes no sense for me to tell you Ibrahim was thrown into the fire for the sake of Allah. That was a test. He passed. Did you relate? You didn't. And these things are mentioned in the Quran for me and you to draw lessons. And if there is one thing you're supposed to learn from today, is that we are supposed to foster the culture of discipline in our lives. What do we want now? Comfort. What do we want most? We want our city thriving again. That is why the young men in Hiroshima never laid down and said, let us rest, let us stay in our comfort zones. We want our comfort right now. We want to heal our wounds right now. But what do we want most? We want our city back on its feet. And they're going to work tirelessly. Fostering the culture of discipline. And with discipline, the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam that we hold so tight today is the legacy of Hajj, pilgrimage. And guess what happens when you're in pilgrimage? فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. There's not going to be sexual intimacy. There's not going to be vulgar words. There's not going to be argumentation in Hajj. What is that? Discipline. So when you look at Ibrahim ready, let me end with this. When you look at Ibrahim ready to sacrifice his son, you could say, that is a level of iman. Me, I can't do what? I can't reach that level. Is this the first thing Ibrahim has sacrificed? Is it the first thing he has done for the sake of Allah? Oh no, it's not the first thing. He stayed away from his family, the people he loved the Lord in Baghdad, in Iraq, in Babylon. He stayed away from them, sacrificing the company of family for the sake of Allah, moving around the different parts of the world for the sake of Allah, leaving your family in the barren desert for the sake of Allah. So someone going through all those, when he reaches sacrificing, it is going to be hard, yes, to sacrifice his own son, but it's not as hard as someone who is doing it for the first time. Are we together? Imagine someone who has not sat PLOE, someone has not sat for UCE, someone has not sat for USCE, and they say you are in your final year. This is the exam you're doing. It is going to determine your success or failure in life. What is going to happen? They're going to collapse. They have not. Imagine sitting for a paper without seeing any past papers. Is that paper the same like a paper you know how the lecturer sets? They can't be different. They can't be the same. So what am I going to do when Allah is taking me through this test? When Allah gives me a fever, maybe He's preparing me for malaria. Maybe He's preparing me for something bigger. And my passing through this test is evidence that I can go through the next. Is evidence that I can go. Maybe Allah has a bigger test for you. But you just can't face that test in one bit. So Allah tests you through steps. Fall into the fire. Ibrahim falls into the fire. Ibrahim leaves his family in the desert. Ibrahim sacrifices himself. Circumcises himself at the age of 80. Do you think sacrificing his son would be as hard to Ibrahim as it would be to someone who received it as the first command? Do you think it would be the same? It wouldn't be the same. I don't want to explain much. I think that is enough for us. The very last bit, I swear. The very last bit. Ibrahim passed the tests. All of them. All of them. وَإِذِ بِتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Ibrahim with some tests, فَأَتَمَّهُنْ, and Ibrahim alayhi salam passed them with flying colors. Surah Al-Baqarah. In Surah Al-Baqarah, we have Adam, we have Iblis, we have Ibrahim. Their accounts are mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. Adam, Iblis, Ibrahim. Have we seen these accounts? Have we seen them now? We looked at the account of Adam and Iblis. We have also looked at a little bit the account of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Let me tell you what Allah is telling us indirectly. Was Iblis tested? Was Iblis tested? Did he pass? No. Okay. Was Adam tested? Did he pass? Sure. He didn't pass. So both Adam and Iblis were tested and both failed the test. What is the difference between Adam and Iblis? The other one applied for corrections. He applied for a retake. He sat for the paper and did he pass the second time? ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. We have wronged ourselves, and if you don't forgive us, we shall truly be amongst the lost ones. He passed the second time. And Allah talks to us about Ibrahim. Was Ibrahim tested? Did he pass? First class. 5.0 CGPA. He passed. And Allah is giving us all these scenarios. Iblis failed, he never made corrections. Adam failed, he made corrections. Ibrahim passed the test. So it is for me and you to choose. Either I'm going to be like Iblis, that I'm going to fail the test and salam alaikum, I won't turn back. Or I'm going to be like Adam, that even when I fail, I'm going to want to do corrections and turn back to Allah. Or I'm like Ibrahim alayhi salam, that what am I going to do? I am going to pass the taste of Allah. I'm going to pass the taste of Allah. And guess what happens? Shortly after this, same Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبِلُوَنَّكُمْ. We are surely going to test you. Who is the you? The you is me. The you is you. So you're going to be tested too. So Allah gives you sample spaces. What happened to Iblis? What happened to Adam? What happened with Ibrahim? For me and you to know that when I'm facing this test, I have three options to choose from. Iblis, Adam, or Ibrahim. I'm sure I don't want to be like Iblis. I'm sure I don't want to be like Iblis. So what Allah does for servants who are this committed to Him, He always gives them a token of appreciation. What did Ibrahim receive as a token of appreciation? And how did he behave after receiving this token of appreciation? We have an appointment with that tomorrow, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.